Shawna Glasser, the difference, Shawna Glasser.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, distinguished Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I love hiking so much. I like to go out with various groups. My favorite include women hikers, since it empowers us women to get out there and do this sport. We are capable of hard things. One of the things I do not enjoy is people do not know the difference between motion sickness and altitude sickness. And they try to treat motion sickness with altitude sickness or the vice versa. How many of you know the difference between motion sickness and altitude sickness? You look like you have some experience. Oh. I very much get both of them. And let's start with motion sickness. We have this amazing thing in between our ears called an inner ear. Your inner ear's job is to position you in your environment. If you fall in a pool, your inner ear should kind of point up to get out. It's designed to help you. And what it does is it receives information from your senses. Motion sickness is when your senses and what your inner ear thinks is going on do not match. It will then send chemicals out and you get nauseous, you get dizzy, vomiting. What are some examples of motion sickness, Chris? Or how
me trying to gulp down my food while trying to answer the question. A good example of motion sickness is just being in a car ride.
Exactly. The treatment for motion sickness would be try to limit the things that cause that separation between your inner ear and what your senses are telling. For example, when you're in a car and you're moving, try not to read. Do not sit backwards in a vehicle because it's just very confusing if you're watching the back and it's going one way and you're not going the same way. It's very confusing. You can stay focused on a fixed object. You can close your eyes to kind of take your senses out of the equation. You can take medication. I actually brought Bonine and I forgot to bring it up. But Bonine is Walmart's brand of Dramamine. They do not sponsor me. I don't have any affiliation. I just love Bonine more than any other brand. It kills that motion sickness for me every single time. Let's now go into altitude sickness. What's going on with altitude sickness? Well, when you go from whatever altitude you're at up into a higher altitude, sometimes your body overreacts. You are dealing with less oxygen. So it's like if you hadn't been running in a long time and you decide to go out and sprint, your heart, your lungs, all the muscles are searching for oxygen that you don't have, and you kind of crash and burn, right? That's kind of what happens with altitude sickness. I have 5 stages of altitude sickness that I go through. So by the time I get to number 5, I need to go down and get out of the altitude. Number 1, I don't typically drink beverages that have bubbles in them or carbonation. So when my belly is, I'm belching, I have bubbles in my belly, that's stage 1 for me. That altitude is affecting me. Stage 2 is nausea. Kind of gross, but my bile comes up and I have to keep swallowing it down and I fight the urge to throw up. Stage 3 is I get headaches and I lose my appetite. And if I'm not willing to eat anything, we've got a problem. Stage 4 is I get really dizzy and lightheaded. And then when I go to stand up, I just kind of think I'm going to pass out. And then number 5, my body starts not responding to me. I will tell it to step and it's delayed, or I feel like my legs are just being held down by heavy weights. Some other symptoms that other people get, there's fatigue, dizziness, and insomnia. I know the key 3 factors for me that I will 100% get altitude sickness if I couldn't sleep the night before, if I have no food in my belly, and if I am trying to go beyond my ability. So if I'm staying with some hikers that are going a lot faster than me, if I'm going up into the altitude, I've got less oxygen to work with, and I'm trying to push my heart rate because it's trying to grab that oxygen that just isn't there. Things that you can do to fix this is you can descend back down. You can try to go up slower. You can rest. I have friends that they get the lightheadedness, the headache. They'll just lay down for 20 minutes. You just kind of reset their body and continue on. The best thing that I have found in terms of medication is getting dried ginger. It just settles my stomach and makes some of my symptoms go away, makes it all bearable. And then eat small amounts when you do eat, when you're experiencing altitude sickness. Your body gets confused. Do I deal with the dumpster fire that my heart and my lungs are going through with the less oxygen, or do I digest this food? Don't make that ultimatum. I hope now you know a little bit more about the difference between motion sick and altitude sickness, what some of the symptoms are, and maybe a little bit about what you can do. Madam Toastmaster.